whichever part of the world you are joining us from. The Global Council for the Promotion of International Trade is proud to host this global celebration of World MSME Day 2021. We have more than 35 speakers joining us today from more than 25 countries. We are really honored and grateful to all of you for accepting our invitation and joining us today. On behalf of GCPIT, I welcome you all to this wonderful evening. I'm Aparna G. Kumar, the Global Co-Chairperson of GCPIT and your host for this evening. To quote Henry Ford, coming together is a beginning, staying together is progress, and working together is success. And we believe this is just a beginning, and this will be a beautiful lifelong relationship between all of us, and we will be working together for supporting SMEs across the globe and thereby creating a sustainable change in the society. As we all know, the United Nations General Assembly designated 27th June as Micro, Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises Day in order to recognize the contribution that MSMEs have made to the implementation of Agenda 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals. Micro, Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises, or MSMEs, account for 90% of businesses, 60 to 70% of employment, and 50% of GDP worldwide. Today, on MSME Day 2021, almost 18 months after the onset of COVID-19 crisis, most countries are still grappling with the pandemic and its severe health and socio-economic impacts, including lockdowns and the need to support those who have lost their jobs and livelihoods. Though at first it was a health crisis, it had unprecedented and serious impacts on all of the aspects of how people communicate, work, produce, trade, consume, and live. The economic ramifications of the pandemic quickly became apparent, and SMEs have been on the front lines. With workers and customers staying indoors and supply chains tested by shutdowns, the small companies that provide 70% of the jobs in countries around the world and about half of economic activity have been put under stress. A COVID-19 business impact survey done by ITC clearly tells us how the pandemic has affected the small and medium enterprises. Analysis of this data shows that the pandemic has strongly affected 55% of their respondents. Nearly 2/3 of micro and small firms reported that the crisis strongly affected their business operations, compared with about 40% of large companies. 1/5 of SMEs said that they risked shutting down permanently within 3 months. Service companies have been the hardest hit around the world. In accommodation and food services, for instance, 76% of the surveyed firms said that partial and full lockdown strongly affected their business operations. 64 of women-led firms declared that the business operations were strongly affected, and youth-led enterprises reported a high risk of closing. About 26% of youth-led firms said they risked shutting down permanently within 3 months, compared to 18% for non-youth-led businesses. Many companies that are not registered with national authorities are small and have little cash on hand to finance themselves whenever operations are shut down. The survey also found that informal enterprises are 25% more likely to say that the pandemic is pushing them towards bankruptcy. All these data shows that as business support organizations, we have a key role to play. The reason for all of us coming together is to cooperate to create growth opportunities for companies, competitive advantage for a country, and help deliver economic, social, and environmental objectives. Businesses working together can reduce costs through shared procurement, create economies of scale, and access new opportunities by sharing knowledge and resources. As business support organizations, we all can benefit from each other's knowledge, convening power, and our credibility to represent micro and small businesses and make their needs known to policymakers and funders. In the last 18 months, the whole world shifted into digital platforms, and teleworking, remote learning, teleconferencing, online health services, e-commerce, and digital payments, all these taught us that digital facilities will no longer be optional. As we are opening to the new world that has been reshaped by the pandemic, we all have to adapt to the new normal, a new normal of building and fostering resilience, digital transformation, inclusiveness, and sustainability. On the 75th anniversary of the United Nations and 5th anniversary of the adoption of the SDGs or the 2030 Agenda, which includes 17 global goals and features 169 related targets that aim to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure prosperity for all, let us make a promise to ourselves. We all have come together today. Let us all work towards creating possibilities, a world where no one is left behind. As Nelson Mandela said, it always seems impossible until it is done. Let's together create the change we wish to see in this world. Thank you so much for joining us today. So on this auspicious day, we are proud to have India's #1 business news channel owned and operated by the Times Network, ETNow, as our media partner. As they salute India's SMEs and MSMEs and startups who showed resilience during the crisis, we are proud to join hands with them. Let us watch a short video.
Leaders of Tomorrow, India's longest and most definitive television platform for SMEs and startups. Pioneering and nurturing their dreams into reality and recognizing true leaders who fuel momentum. The Leaders of Tomorrow Awards and Conclave is back to salute India's SMEs, MSMEs and startups across industries and sectors who not only survived but saw revival and thrived during the pandemic. Have you shown resilience during this crisis? Have you innovated against all odds? Nominate yourself and win the chance to be felicitated at Leaders of Tomorrow's illustrious awards. Register yourself now. Entries open. Presented by IDFC First Bank.
That is amazing work. Thank you so much for joining us and supporting us in this mission for SMEs. So now let's go to our session 5, the future of SMEs and trade in Africa continent. This session is going to be led by Ms. Aber Sashi, Director General GCPIT Tunisia, and she's ready there. I can see her. She is a Tunisian textile engineer with solid international experience in sustainability, quality, industrialization, and supply chain. Referent auditor in sustainability and quality and founder of Aber Sustainable Advisory in Tunisia, providing advisory and training services to companies and suppliers in apparel, fashion, and sports goods who want to get started in their sustainability journey. So, Abir, over to you.
Thank you, Aparna. Thank you so much. Today we are celebrating the World MSMEs Day. Thank you, GCPIT, for organizing this great event to highlight the role of micro, small, and medium enterprises in all over the world. It's believed that MSMEs are the first responders to social needs, and this type of enterprises has been found to be a major driver of poverty, alleviation, and development, helping to generate incomes and jobs across the globe. So today I'm honored to present Africa continent, as I'm Tunisian, and I will focus on African MSMEs, small and micro medium enterprises in Africa. Small and medium enterprises are the backbone of Africa's economy. So accounting for approximately 90% of all companies and providing nearly 80% of the region's employment, with a total number of about 17.4 million, they account for about 50% of industrial jobs and nearly 90% of the manufacturing sector. In terms of number of enterprises, projections show that by 2050, Africa's population will double. So by 2100, 1 in 3 people on Earth will be African. So this means that by the end of the century, Sub-Saharan Africa, which already has an extraordinarily young population, will be home to almost half of the young people in the world. So the economy of Africa consists of the trade, industry, agriculture, and human resources of the continent. Growth has been present throughout the continent, with over 1/3 of African countries posting 6% or higher growth rates, and another 40% growing between 4% to 6% per year. Globally, micro, small, and medium enterprises, MSMEs, contribute to an estimated 50% of total employment. In Africa, MSMEs are estimated to contribute an ever higher 70% of the region's total employment. However, in several surveys and studies, access to credit consistently comes up as the leading barrier to growth for MSMEs. A study by the International Finance Corporation, which is IFC, assessed the credit gap for formal MSMEs to be more than $100 billion across Africa. So why the future is Africa? and why SMEs should lead the way. It's commonly accepted that the drivers of economic growth and long-term sustainability for emerging markets lie into the potential and effective development of the small and medium enterprises sector. Africa has an estimated population of more than 1.3 billion people that is growing as over 2% of the population annually in most countries, which more than 50% has growing need for the services, jobs, and economic growth provided by locally based SMEs, yet these enterprises face an array of challenges that far outstretch those of their counterparts in developed countries. So one key challenges they're facing in access to finance. Financial access is the single biggest hindrance to both the establishment of new of existing ones. So according to GFA, investing in SMEs requires a country-specific financial model and a local knowledge footprint. Unquestionably, the factors that contribute to SMEs business failures go beyond access to finance, and a full understanding of these challenges is key to tapping the potential that African SMEs offer. So for instance, African SMEs usually have to navigate poor government policies, long and bureaucratic applications processes, unfair tender procedures, bordering on corruption, delayed payments for goods and services, and the lack of enforcement of the rule of law. Addressing these challenges will be crucial to the long-term success of these businesses. And African small and medium enterprises are some of the most resilient entrepreneurs in the world, which with a unique ability to operate in non-conductive business environments. Imagine their potential if they were given a more stable and supportive environment in which to grow their enterprises. Many predict that Africa will become a key player in the global economy in the coming decades due to its untapped mineral wealth and natural resources, geostrategic position, vast arable land, and booming population growth, including a huge number of young workers. This transformation may still be 10, 20 years away, but it's coming. And the continent's SMEs could lead the way. If they do, the next crop of global billionaires may emerge from Africa, which is a good thing. This future may be uncertain, but it would be short-sighted to bet against it. Maybe after 20 years, I will be one of them. So let me welcome our honorable guests from Africa. So we have with us today Mr. Cham Etienne Bama from Cameroon, Mr. Gilbert Sebi Yeboah from Ghana, Mr. Moses Omaru from Nigeria, Mr. Saul Molobi from South Africa, Miss Cindy Nzamu from South Africa as well, Ms. Turfa Ashwi from Nigeria, Mr. Sami Ben Abdallah from Tunisia, and Mr. Najib Kali from Tunisia. So I don't know if Mr. Cham Etienne Bama is with us now. Could you speak, please? Okay, so we can start by Mr. Gilbert Sebi Yeboah. So Mr. Gilbert Sebi Yeboah from Ghana is currently the head of Consumer Finance Department at the Agricultural Development Bank, ADB. PLC, a Tier 1 universal bank in Ghana. He has over 16 years of experience in banking and has played varied roles from retail banking to corporate banking. His areas of expertise and credit structuring, business development, relationship management, investment appraisal, and consumer financing. Mr. Gilbert provided thought leadership in the areas of business financing, economic development, technology application on several platforms, both home and abroad. He has hands-on experience in business financing with the SME space in Ghana and underwrote several tickets, including trade finance. Mr. Gilbert is a technology thinker and is driving reforms at ADB to improve consumer financing through the application of technology. Prior to joining ADB in 2004, Mr. Gilbert holds MBA in Finance, MA in Development Economies, and postgraduate certificate in Management Information Systems, aside several training courses in trade and business finance, credit origination, risk management, security management, and investigative psychology, treasury management, advanced research methods, and financial analysis. He is a member of the Chartered Institute of Management Consultants, CIMC in Canada. Wow, that's a great honor to have you with us today, Mr. Gilbert. Please, you can give us a great speech. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Abena Safi, and thank you to Santosh. And also thank you to organizers of DCPIT for organizing World MSME Day. We've had great speakers. I was privileged to have joined you during the Asian and European sections, and I listened to great speakers, and I'm glad I'm here today. When we talk about SME, SME is the future, and the future is SME. During the pandemic, African governments became aware of, let me say, the value of SME. So particularly in Ghana, for example, there were a lot of measures taken to address the effects of the COVID pandemic on SME business. For example, the government of Ghana established 100 billion Ghana cedi fund, that is equivalent of 17.5 billion United States dollars, for the alleviation of hardship on SME businesses in Ghana. Out of this 100 billion Ghana cedis, or $17.5 billion, $10 billion went to businesses, particularly SMEs, to resuscitate them and also to mitigate the effects of the pandemic. SMEs in Ghana, very, very important because they employ about 80% of the Ghanaian workforce. And the picture I'm painting about Ghana is so with most parts of the Africa, especially sub-Saharan Africa. And 90% of all businesses, 90% of all businesses in Ghana is comprised of SMEs. MSME, that is the micro, small, and medium enterprises. Now, they employ a chunk of our workforce. It means that this is a very important sector and contributes over 70% of the country's GDP. Why is it important? Why is SME the future of Africa? Or why is SME the future? We say SME, from where I said, I think SME is the future because it is key in terms of solving the continent's unemployment problem. With SMEs giving the needed support, it can take more. If it employs up to 80% of the workforce, it means that it has capacity to absorb more of the workforce if care is given to it. If we take care, we take the initiative to nurture SME, then it has capacity to take more. And it is, for me, it holds the key to solving our unemployment problem as a continent or as a
Mr. Gilbert, you are mute. We are not hearing you. Could you unmute yourself, please?
Sorry. Sassy, why did I? Was it from the beginning?
No,
Hello?
no, just for a few seconds. Okay, just for the last few seconds.
Okay. So let me start. I'm talking about why I think SME is the future. I'm talking about the future of SME and why I think SME is the future. SME is the future because it holds the key to solving our unemployment problem. And we have unemployment problem from Ghana to South Africa to Tunisia. All over Africa, we have unemployment issues. One of the key areas to address this unemployment problem is the development of a vibrant SME sector. If we're able to develop the SME sector, then of course, the private sector will expand to take more because government cannot create that kind of jobs that is needed to solve the unemployment problem that we have. It is so because with SME, you need less capital. The entry, the barrier of entry is very, very low. Since you need low capital. In Ghana, for example, with the $50, $100, and a single person can start a business. With $50, single person can start a business. So if we have the kind of support available to SMEs, then we will be able to solve the unemployment problem that we have on the continent. I think SME is the future because for me, it can become the hub for innovation. It is a place for experimentation of ideas. It offers the platform for people to experiment business ideas. So if we take SME, good care of SMEs, then of course, that will become a hub for innovation. We'll be able to innovate our way through the business ecosystem. Again, the after, for me, provides opportunities for SMEs. And it has come at a critical time. At a time after was inaugurated, that was early 2019. I think somewhere in April, the COVID came. And because of that, the noise about after went down. However, the importance of AFTA cannot be downplayed as far as SMEs are concerned in Africa, because it provides them the opportunity for growth. And so for me, SMEs or MSMEs are the future or is the future. Again, MSMEs is the future because for me, it's a game changer when we talk about women economic empowerment. Without SMEs, there's no way we can empower women because women form majority of, the workforce within the SME subsector. And therefore, if you are keen and if you are more serious about women empowerment, then for me, SME is the key. We need to talk about SME and see how we can develop SME. Now, having talked about why SME for me is the future for Africa's economic development and Ghana's economic development, and particularly the sub-regions economic development, there are a few things we need to do to be able to push that agenda. And I think we need to look at how we can integrate the MSMEs within the continent into the global value chain systems to give them value. We have a lot of businesses, small businesses across. A lot of them can produce for export, but because they are not connected to the global value chain system, they don't get so much value. They cannot export. And if we take, if we make conscious efforts and take concrete steps to integrate them into the global value chain business system, then we'll be able to get values for them. Again, SMEs have issues with finance, and we need to solve the finance issue. If we're able to solve the finance issue, then of course we can give them the future that they deserve. For example, our bankers should be proactive. Our bankers should have the skills. Our bankers should have the desire, the will to help solve this financing issue. A lot of time, where I sit, or from where I come from, where I work, we look at collaterals instead of cash flow. If they are able to look at cash flow, then a lot of SME businesses can sell through when it comes to credit instead of looking at collateral. And so I'm calling on them to shift away from capital to be able to build collaterals, as well also get a capital to start, push into the business. So we should look at that. Again, we need governmental efforts, governmental support in terms of tax incentives, in terms of government spending. Government is the biggest spender in the economy. If government makes conscious effort to be spending on SMEs or be buying from MSMEs, then of course we can ensure the kind of growth that they need. And then government also needs to provide capital support, technical support, and also access to information. Then again, the SMEs themselves, they need to be formalized. Formalization, they need to get records. They need to have as if they are corporations. succession plans. That's one thing we lack in Africa, and therefore businesses don't travel. Then the business collapse because we don't have proper systems in place. These are things that we need. If they put these things in place, then of course we can ensure their sustainability even after the death of their promoter. And what I think SMEs need in this critical time is collaborations instead of competition. We will need to collaborate so that we can pull the needed resources together to take advantage of opportunities that like after. Last one, we need what we call peer consulting. And when O'Connor was talking, he said, let me quote him, he said, share your ideas, don't be scared. That is what we need. We need to encourage them so that they will do peer consulting among themselves. Then, of course, we can create the value that we're looking for. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Gilbert. Thank you so much for this great speech. We are very honored to have you with us today. Let's move to the second speaker, Mr. Moses Omaru. He's the current Director General of the Franco-Nigerian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, CC France Nigeria. A foremost bilateral chamber established in 1985 with a mission to promote trade and investment between France and Nigeria. This mission is carried out in partnership with Business France, the economic section of the Embassy of France in Nigeria, and the Nigerian Embassy in Paris. Most is one of the leading voices in Nigeria as relates to ease of doing business, government's fiscal and monetary policies, other trade policies of government, and a strong advocate of diversification in Nigeria. He has shared discuss on macroeconomic issues on various high-level platforms in and out of Nigeria, and regular guest analysts on top media platforms to discuss issues as relates to the Nigerian business environment. We are so proud to have with us today, Mr. Moses. Please, would you unmute yourself to speak?
Yeah, I think I'm unmuted already. Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Okay, sorry. So I'm also sharing my screen. Can you see it?
Yes, we are seeing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Indeed, I am delighted to be here today for this invitation from the GCPIT. And thank you, Abia. You have given us huge perspectives already as far as all the issues are concerned. As far as African startup is concerned, I'm trying to get for the first part of my screen, and just a second, if you don't mind. I have a short presentation I'll be speaking to now. So I'm trying to get from the beginning of, just a minute.
You have 5 to 6 minutes to speak.
Yes, please. I'm aware.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll quickly start from here. One thing that we have done as far as the France-Nigerian Chamber of Commerce is concerned here in Nigeria is the fact that during the pandemic last year, of course, there were a lot of stimulus packages like what my Ghana representative has just spoken to right now, where the government of Ghana supported SMEs. But beyond what the government is doing, what the France-Nigerian Chamber of Commerce did was that we opened up a new membership category targeted at startups. And since then, we have registered over 200 members of that membership category. And then as of last year, November, we organized a trade exhibition for these startups, young startups within the age of 30 and below. And then it was a beautiful event with the embassy and with big corporates, big French corporations. And today, as I'm talking to you, there's a company called Scrappace that is doing business with CFAO. I'm sure it's a global brand. There's a company called Upnipa.ng that is doing businesses that is helping a lot of companies manage their power utility solutions and all of that. So we are contributing as far as enabling startups is concerned here in Nigeria. One thing I want to create is I want to create a very important perspective as far as startup is concerned, the role of startups in African development. Number one, SMEs contribute 80% of African enterprises. You have mentioned that already, Abia, and Mr. Yeboah has also affirmed to that as far as Ghana is concerned. Formal SMEs contribute 40% of the national income, GDP in emerging countries, and that's from the World Bank report. When combined with the informal SMEs, it gives a contribution of about 80%. Mr. Yeboah mentioned that very important point where he talked about the possibility of bringing those SMEs in the informal sector to make sure they are registered businesses. And it's also very, very important because if government is coming out with incentives for businesses, most of the times, the reason why these people are not getting most of government incentives is because they are in the informal sector, their companies are not registered, there is no record of those companies. And if when it comes to palliatives and, incentives of government, even from the World Bank, from the AFDB, it is almost impossible for them to get the benefits of all of those things. Now, I had something at the side of it, the contribution of SMEs to the GDP of a few African countries. I have Ethiopia contributing 90%. I have Ghana contributing 70% to the GDP and 49% to the employment. I have Kenya contributing 80% to the employment and 40% to 50% of the GDP. I have Nigeria, the SMEs in Nigeria contribute 70% to Nigeria's employment figures, and of course, 50% of Nigeria's GDP. What that means is that the SMEs are the real drivers of economic activity within the African continent. And of course, I was privileged to listen to speakers from Europe and Asia also. And one thing they kept repeating is that SMEs are the drivers even of the economic growth in even developed countries like the EU, the Asian Minor, and of course, the Asian Pacific. And of course, I'm sure even America also, SMEs are driving businesses there. It means that even globally, it's a global phenomenon and more in Africa. Now, SMEs in Africa have become an attraction for foreign direct investments over the years. I have a few slides, just one slide to talk about that here. Nigerian-based company called Cast45.com has, of course, got investment of over $5 million, Series A funding from Frontier Cars. 2017, fintech funding went to Nigerian startup Flutterwave, $10 million, and Lydia. SpaceTac received over $200 million funding from Stripe, which became the biggest news as far as the biggest investment in startup is concerned in Africa. Kenya's PayGo raised $1.4 million in funding. South Africa digital cleanup startup Sweeps Out concluded a Series A round funding, and the list goes on and on. What it means is that African startups are positioning themselves for even venture capital funding. If you look at the other side of the screen, you see the level of investment that has come into startup. I can see Morocco there, $11.2 million. Ghana, Mr. Yeboah can testify to that, $111 million for startups in Ghana. And Nigeria, $307 million. And the list goes on and on and on and on. What it means is that SMEs in Africa is indeed attracting foreign and direct investment. Now, I would just want to wrap up as soon as possible. I'm trying to get to my other slides. So maybe I'll just speak from my paper here. Now, lastly, I want to say this, and it's very, very important I mention this. Like what you have said and what Mr. Yeboah has said is that it is commonly accepted that the drivers of economic growth, long-term sustainability for emerging markets lie in the potential and effective development of the small and medium enterprise, which is the SMEs. Africa has an estimated population of over 1.3 billion people. You mentioned that, Abia, in your opening statement, and growing at a 2% rate, with more than 50% of the people below the age of 25. The population has a growing need for services, jobs, economic growth provided by locally based SMEs. Now, one very fundamental fact is that SMEs in Africa are providing solutions within the African market because it's a very big market. Nigeria, for example, we're talking about a market of 200 million people, which over 70% are a young population, right? So it gives a space for a lot of SMEs. But now going beyond these beautiful stories about SMEs, a lot of SMEs are not surviving. Number one, Mr. Yeboah mentioned that access to funding. Number two, understanding real business structure. And that is what chambers of commerce like ours we are doing here in Nigeria. Next month, we are having a technical training for startups on venture capital financing, understanding business proposal, having a proper business plan and the rest of them. So we can empower them with the necessary skill so that they can be able to scale up. But one fundamental fact is that SMEs in Africa are thriving. There is opportunity for growth, and definitely they are definitely growing. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I step back now.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moses. It's a great presentation. Thank you for your efforts. And really, Africa is an attraction for investment. That's the recap. Thank you so much. So let's move to our third guest today, Mr. Saul Molivi. So he's a former of South Africa's Consul General to Milan. He's the CEO of Brandel Africa, BTI Ltd. He's touted as one of the foremost thought leaders on competitive identity and public diplomacy, with experience in global marketing in the areas of tourism, trade, and investment promotion. He has vast experience from diverse fields, private sector, having worked as publishing director on Heinemann Publishers, state-owned companies, senior manager, corporate communication at Telcom, general manager, marketing and communication, trade and investment, Limpopo, most recently as group executive, trade, investment, and regulatory enablement, Gothering Growth and Development Agency. Public Service, Chief Director, Marketing Communication, Department of Trade and Industry, General Manager, Provincial Communication Services, and Department of International Relations and Cooperation, and the Anti-Apartheid NGO Sector Editor-in-Chief, Learn and Teach Publications, and Director, Independent Magazine Group. Wow, that's great. He promotes Made in Africa through Jumbo Africa Online Weekly News Portal and the Biashara Services and Products Africa, BSPA, Conference and Exhibition. A Doctor of Business Administration student at the University of Northampton, he already possesses an MSc in Global Marketing, University of Liverpool, and MA in Dramatic Arts, WITS. His book, Sound and Fury, The Chronicles of Healing, endeavors to mainstream issues affecting people with disabilities. The foreword was written by Mr. Kalima Motlanthe, former South Africa's president. So welcome, Mr. Saul Molivi. We are very honored to have you with us today as a guest speaker. Please unmute yourself. We are hearing you.
Thank you very much, Program Director. And also thank you to my fellow panelists and distinguished guests. I do have a detailed presentation. I'm not going to go through it. I will just give you a summary of it, and perhaps the organizers can later share it with you. I'm doing this in the interest of time. I'm going to start with a quick quotation from Thomas Sankara, the first post-independence president of Burkina Faso. He said, "You cannot carry out fundamental change without a certain amount of madness. In this case, it comes from non-conformity, the courage to turn your back on the old formulas, the courage to invent the future. It took the madmen of yesterday for us to be able to act with extreme clarity today. I want to be one of those madmen. We must dare to invent the future." Then most of us will also remember Steve Jobs, one of the co-founders of Apple, who said, I quote, "Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They are not fond of rules." And he said, you can differ with them, but these kind of people push the human race forward. In 1990, when South Africa's political space became liberalized, we invited Nawal El-Saadawi from Egypt, a very militant author, and she said to us as young writers and journalists that creativity starts with disobedience. In fact, in 2018, the Harvard Business Review decided to study these madmen, these crazy ones, these disobedient people. And their research produced a paper which was about 14 pages. And they referred to this special kind of people as the rebel talent. Now, I'm not going to romanticize the issue of the SMEs. I'm going to tell you about how sad the situation is in Africa. Right now, the continent is integrating into one free trade area, bringing together 1.27 billion consumers. And we are looking at integrating 55 AU member states into one free trade area. This will be the largest free trade area in the whole world. But we are looking at a combined GDP of 3.6 trillion US dollars. But there's a problem. There's an institute called Brand Leadership Group in South Africa. They do annual surveys across the continent, and they look at the top 100 most admired brands in Africa. In 2010, when they first launched this study, they found that 34% of the top 100 most admired brands in Africa were homegrown, were of African origin. And the number came down in 2019 to 14%. I got depressed, and last year, I went into straight depression because the number came down to 13, which means that yes, the 1.27 billion consumers that we boast about on the continent are not embracing made in Africa brands. They are uptaking brands from other continents. This is a challenge to us. I've heard my fellow panelists and earlier speakers who spoke about the need for funding for small, medium, and micro enterprises. With me, I would say we need to give them the necessary resource for them to be able to invest in brand building exercises so that they can position their products in such a way that they could be palatable to the consumers, but not only the consumers in Africa, but also across the continent. And that's why, after being in the public service for 20 years, I decided that I was now going to establish this company, manufacturers, to see the value of branding their products so that they could be perceived very positively, not only by our local consumers on the African continent, but consumers across the entire world. And then I also said, Brand Africa itself is under siege. The minute you say I'm from South Africa, they say, oh, Africa, and they start sharing with you all the misperceptions they have about the continent. Then I said, it should be my responsibility to change this. In 1899, Joseph Conrad wrote a novel called The Heart of Darkness, and he dubbed Africa the Dark Continent. And this continued even though over many years, our forebears continued to wage wars of national liberation. And it was unfortunate that in 2018, President Donald Trump said African nations and Haiti were nations. And the University of Southern California then undertook a research to find out what was the impact of that statement on Brand Africa. And they found that indeed it has taken Africa back to 1899 when Joseph Conrad dubbed the continent the Dark Continent. So it is us as small and medium enterprises that we need to invest sufficient resources so that we could be able to access not just foreign markets, but also our immediate market, because people have negative perceptions about made in Africa. I'll pause here. Thank you so much for this invitation.
Thank you so much, Mr. Saul from South Africa. Great speech. I totally agree with you. And let's change this vision and make the change and become a change maker in the world. Thank you so much. So I will move for our next guest. I'm so honored to present. She's a lady, Miss Sindiswa Nzamo from South Africa as well. She's the president of Circle of Global Business Women. So she's the founder and president of the Circle of Global Business Women, board chairman, Edison Power Group, KZN, Group CEO, Circle of Global Business Women Investments, trustee Regeni C's Foundation. Qualifications, she has qualifications in accounting, human resources, corporate governance, strategic leadership, executive leadership, program as GIVS University. She's a former group COO, Edison Power Group. She's a former DDG of Rural Development in KZN. She's a former executive at Land Bank, a state-owned entity in South Africa in the agriculture sector. And she's former executive at First National Bank, now called First Rand. Wow, I'm so happy and glad to welcome you, Mrs. Cindy. Please unmute yourself. You have 5 to 6 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Program Director, for the introduction. And also thank you very much for the GCIPT for actually inviting me today. As the president for the Circle of Global Business Women, and also I'd like to greet my co-presenters, indeed, for us to celebrate the Micro, Small, Medium Enterprises Day as Africa, as Europe, as Asia. I always say that collaboration is the new competition. And I'm glad that I'm seeing collaboration in this platform where we get all the continents in the world to come together and solve the challenges that small businesses are having in the continent. So that when we're talking about our statistics, we're going to actually look at a statistical approach that is global, where all the regions of the economies are involved. And that's very important, because why I'm saying this, my dearest sister, is that COVID has taught me one thing. COVID has taught me governments, civil society, private sector must come together. And COVID doesn't have borders. And hence we're here today to actually say, let us come together as regions of the world and solve the challenges that the SMEs have. As you have said that, you know, the SMEs is very raw in economies, in particular in Africa, in developing countries as well in Asia. And it's very important for us to take SMEs seriously. But also at the same time, what is very interesting about SMEs is that it accounts to the majority of businesses in the world. So if you look at what the statistics are saying in Europe, it's the same thing of the statistics that are saying in Africa. So we do have common, objectives on SMEs in all the regions of the world. And we are grateful, because if you look at where we are, voila, we have a first, Black, a female DG of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi, who was appointed on the 1st of March. And we really have to actually make sure that we see African countries trading with European countries, using that channel, in particular women. That's very important for us, because we need to actually use that opportunity as a powerful opportunity for us to make sure that women take that rightful position. And also my colleagues have mentioned, as the Circle of Global Business Women, we are serving on the Women Trade Protocol. His Excellency Wamgele Mene, he was our guest speaker at the launch for the Circle of Global Business Women on the 15th of July. The Circle of Global Business Women is at the center, is at the core of the implementation of the Women Trade Protocol. And now where do we go from here when we talk about small, medium enterprises? We do have women informal traders. Those are the backbone of the African continent. When we're talking about women that can drive the SMME division, we need to capacitate the women informal traders in the continent and give them support so that they'll be able to rise and increase the number. Because as I was listening to the statistics, Africa in the next coming years is going to be different from what we are seeing now. And we need to push women and make sure that women take their rightful position in the marketplace. But also, if you look at what statistically we are looking at now, 47% of the workforce in the continent belongs to the SMMEs. And where do we go from here? I'm glad, Abe, because we had our own international trade webinar on Thursday, and our dearest sister, who is now based in South Korea, she is from Tunisia. She presented a very powerful model, e-entrepreneurship. E-entrepreneurship, how do we as SMMEs take the SMMEs in the e-platform? They start actually showcasing their businesses on e-platform so that it's going to be easy for them to do e-lending, e-invoicing, e-factoring, e-shipping, because those things are very important for us as we're moving forward. We know that we're sitting in a pandemic now and things are different. And what we are doing now, it's futuristic. We're no longer going to be able to actually do the things that we're doing before the pandemic. So it's very important to empower our SMMEs in the marketplace so that they'll be able to actually drive the economy of the country or the economy of their countries globally. So as the Circle of Global Business Women will partner with the South African French Chamber of Commerce, I'm glad the Nigerian French Chamber of Commerce is here. We're doing amazing things because we are not working in silo, because what has been killing us globally is the silo-driven programs. Let us collaborate. Let us come together so that our impact is going to be radical on the SMMEs. And also finance is also one other issue. My proposal in this platform, let us come up with a strategy where we advocate, SMMEs in platforms like the World Economic Forum, the WTO, the International Trade Center, the G7 platforms, the G20 platforms. As the Circle of Global Business Women have partnered with the International Chamber of Commerce as well, so that we'll be able to take and offload women, all those SMMEs that are in the marketplace. But finally, the most important one, which is for the Circle of Global Business Women, we take it so seriously. We have a rural development strategy. We've got amazing, great things that rural women are doing in South Africa and in Africa. And we feel that we need to create a platform for them as SMMEs as well, to showcase their talent, to showcase their products in the marketplace. So we need to actually make sure that we mainstream women, we mainstream rural women at the same time, so that women in the marketplace, they can thrive and make sure that they lead their families with dignity. With those words, I'd like to say, this is what I can share as the president for the Circle of Global Business Women. But what is key for us as well is sustainable economic growth and developmental goals through active participation of SMMEs. And also they must play a critical role in terms of implementation. We have these brilliant strategies, but when it comes to implementation, everything falls into crack. So I think today, in this summit, we need to come up with strong resolutions. How are we going to actually move forward in terms of implementing the SMME strategies, celebrating SMMEs today? But the final one, Program Director, I know we always talk about this, and it's always an issue to me. We need to stratify who is micro, who is they call it micro, small, medium. Who is micro, who is small, who is medium, so that we graduate the micro to medium, we graduate the small to medium. So it's very important, because at the end of the day, the very same SMMEs are double dipping. So if we don't have a policy that deals with the stratification, we'll have a problem. Thank you very much for those words. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much for this great speech. Yes, it's an honor to see an African, a beautiful lady like you shining and highlighting the African trade. So please keep in touch, and together we have a lot to do for Africa and for the world. Thank you so much for having you. And let's move to our next guest speaker. She's also a lady, and I'm so happy to see beautiful ladies from my continent speaking. She's Mrs. Terfa Ashwi. So she's from Nigeria, and she's an international trade law and governance specialist. Ms. Ashwi started her career in Nigeria, where she was junior counsel with a reputable law firm. She worked with the Department of Political Affairs at the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. And at the World Trade Organization, WTO, she worked on negotiations as a researcher associate in the office of the former Director General, Roberto Azevedo, before moving to the Development Division. Mrs. Terfa returned to Nigeria in 2017 to take up the position of senior trade negotiator in the then newly created Nigerian Office for Trade Negotiation, NOTN. At NOTN, she participated in negotiations and in country consultations of the African Continental Free Trade Area before moving to the International Trade Center in 2018 as a national coordinator for the She Trades Commonwealth project in Nigeria. She currently provides consultancy services on trade and development. Mrs. Terfa holds a bachelor's degree in law and was called to the Nigerian bar in 2010. She has a postgraduate master's degrees in international economic law from the University of Strathclyde in Glasgow. Very honored to have you with us today, Mrs. Terfa. Please unmute yourself and welcome. You have 5 to 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Sisi. It's a pleasure to be here. I'll just like to also thank the organizers, the Global Council for the Promotion of International Trade, for putting together such a remarkable event. Other members of the panel, thank you so much for providing such insightful, bits of not just information, but also guidance on how we can navigate this very difficult time that we are going through, not just as a continent, but as a global community of small and medium-sized enterprises. So thank you so much for that. And of course, the guests that have joined us here today, representing small and medium-sized enterprises from around the world. It's truly an honor to be here to acknowledge your contribution to the global economy and what we can do together collectively. I think a word that has gone on and almost every other speaker has brought up is the importance of collaboration. So it's really a pleasure to be able to sit down here today and discuss. I think for me, one of the things that, first of all, I had a list of points that I wanted to make. And then I heard everybody else speak. And then I feel like I need to, first of all, touch on some of the very interesting points that the earlier panelists had made. And then if I have time, I'll then maybe flag add maybe a few things on my own end. The last speaker, Mrs. Cindy, she mentioned the AfCFTA and its importance. And I think somebody else also mentioned the importance of the AfCFTA. I think this is a very important thing for building the capacity of small and medium-sized enterprises going forward for the continent. It's a way to provide access to markets, especially markets that are close by, close geographic proximity, access to markets that understand our products, appreciate the uniqueness that we provide in the way in which we develop and we build goods and services. And then it also is important just to make sure. I know there's been a lot of the narrative on the importance of AFCFTA for small and medium-sized businesses, but also to add there what she mentioned about defining who a small and medium-sized enterprise is. I know for a fact that the African Continental Free Trade Agreement does mention quite a lot. It mentions small and medium-sized businesses. It's a huge aspect of its development objectives. And I still think I completely agree with you that an important part of actually making, bridging that gap between implementing the FCFTA for the good of these businesses will be to define who these micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises are for the purpose of implementing the FCFTA. So just to point that out, I completely agree with you. There's a need, of course, for collaboration between the public and the private sector. We'll come back to this when I'm speaking a few on my own points, but I do think that there is a deficit of trust between the public sector and the private sector. I may be speaking from my own experience here in Nigeria, but I think it's something that a lot of governments in other countries need to address to start to see businesses and the private sector as a partner for development and growth and poverty reduction, and not just a tool or for revenue, generation. This is what I would say. We need to start to think about them as a more inclusive part of our story for growth on the continent. And of course, the important role of startups and that emerging space for investment that is rising. I think for me, the only cautionary point there is that it's important that we recognize the uniqueness of the startup and how very different their needs are from micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. And we should be careful not to overlap this. And of course, not to also think that because there's this rising attractiveness of startups within the continent, we start to disregard the very important contribution that micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, both in the formal sector and the informal sector, are making to the creation of jobs, driving of innovation, and reducing poverty on the continent as well. So it's important to understand the important role of startups as well as the contributing environment that SMEs need. That is also very different from that. And of course, I love the message about changing the narrative about Africa and trade. And yes, so those are just a few points. I know we've made a lot of forward statements. This is where we're going. This is what we need to do next. And I really like the opening statement by the moderator, Mrs. Sesi. You had a very optimistic and colorful vision for the future. I wish I could generate as much enthusiasm as you have. I think that we should, yes, excited about it, but we also need be aware of the current situation that we're in. I know a lot of people are tired of the pandemic and are tired of talking about COVID, but the actual thing is that it's a real reality for our businesses today. Although the worst passing, because we see countries are now starting to vaccinate their population, we still know that businesses are still at the thick of recovery. We know that the majority of small and medium-sized enterprises were impacted severely by the COVID pandemic. And more than half of them have been, reported. I think the survey by the ITC reported that they were at serious risk of, shutting down and closing down. So these are real realities that we still need to address. But in spite of all of that, I think there are a few lessons that I would like to just highlight, because I think it's important that we learn from this experience. No matter how painful it was, it's important that we learn from it, because from learning from it, we'll be able to understand the vulnerability, better understand vulnerability of micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises on the continent, to be understand how they can prepare better next time, how they can, anticipate change, how they can mitigate it, how they can be more resilient, how they can be more adaptable to these problems. I know a lot of people, and yes, and I think another thing that we really learned was the cascading effect of disasters and how it really affects. So it was one pandemic, but in the end, and this is not any small thing. Aside from the 1.5 million people that died, we also saw 28 trillion loss in economic loss globally. In addition to this, Africa is now going through, the worst recession in over 50 years. But we can learn from this, because one thing I don't want to happen after this passes is that we start to, down the impact of crisis on businesses, because although the pandemic was a huge thing, on a daily basis and every year we see that there are several events that are picking up, whether it's related to the climate change or the impending climate crisis, or we have loss of biodiversity. We see a lot of changes around the world. Outside the losses that were incurred due to COVID, we still incurred about 18.4 million, 71.3 billion in economic damage as well, in addition to that which was lost from COVID. So I think the ability to understand the importance of vulnerability of small and medium-sized businesses is really important, and something that we need to start to take into consideration to ensure that our businesses are able to survive, especially since a lot of speakers before have emphasized the importance of micro, small, and medium-sized businesses, how they are the bedrock of the economy. So it's important to understand their vulnerabilities and how we can better provide for them. And that being said, there are a few things I think are important that we do. One is that we need to take into consideration the unique, I know that we don't have here on the continent the luxury of having multiple trillion-dollar economic packages for recovery. We have to understand that there are real resource restrictions and limitations. And so in order to make sure that resources are going to the right place to ensure that we do recover and we're able to grow, it's important that we bring our micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, the business support organizations that support them into the conversation, that we collaborate with them, that we make sure that the conversation on how to rebuild is inclusive. It means that we need to rebuild that relationship of trust between the public and the private sector, which basically means that, am I over time? Which basically means we need to have access to clear and correct and confirmable information on policies that are being developed and how we can make sure that the environment, the regulatory environment for businesses is stable. We need to ensure that in terms of cross-cutting, there are a couple of things. So basically to invest in that relationship of trust between the private and the public sector through developing inclusive policies that identify the priorities for micro, small, and medium-sized businesses, and make sure that those resources are addressing the specific priorities as opposed to a long list or a long wish list of things that should or could happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We don't have a lot of time, excuse me, but we cannot be bored from hearing and listening to your great speeches. I totally agree. Despite of the huge impact of this pandemic, we have all the resources needed in Africa to transform this difficulty to opportunity, and let's become the future billionaire in the world. So be optimistic. Thank you so much, beautiful ladies, for your speeches. And let's move to our next guest from Tunisia, Mr. Sami Ben Abdallah. He is graduated from IHEC with Masters in Marketing in Tunisia. In 1996, he obtained an MBA in entrepreneurship from Suffolk University in Boston, in United States. He joined the group just after, in January 1997, the group Bacosport, one of the biggest group in Tunisia, to manage, and he has his own brand, which is named Fadila, of textile women's wear. This brand is very famous across the world. He has various companies. The entire group has about 11 companies, including the group Bacovet, since 2014. So in 2007, he creates his own real estate promotion company of constructions of villas. In 2016, he was appointed president of the Tunisian Textile Consortium. In 2020, he has created his own property management company, Luxury Villas. Also, in the end of 2020, he created his own management company of premium guest houses. In number of employees, this encompasses more than 3,500 employees, including the workforce or member companies of the consortium, including 1,500 100 people for the group Bacospor for textile manufacturing, which is now about 1,200 currently due to the COVID situation and crisis. So last year, the group Bacovets was ranked the #1 of the first enterprise employing the textile workers in the region of Tunisia. So I'm very proud to welcome Mr. Sami here.
Hello, Abir.
Yeah.
I don't know if you hear me.
Yes, yes, please.
Okay.
Welcome.
Hello, Abir. We've had the opportunity to meet during some business exchanges and also some projects regarding sustainability and green company. One of the future in Africa, first of all, I think is our youth. Young people need to have the environment, a good environment to work and to evolve in Tunisia or also in Africa and other African countries. We need to make them feel comfortable, feel them, they have the future, they have opportunities to improve their business, to promote their business also, or as some other speakers, and thank you for this invitation and for this quality of speakers and speeches we had so far. As some people said, they have problems, people to feel comfortable in their business or in their environment. Dealing with the administration is a problem in Africa. Now with the pandemic, it's getting even worse. I think we need to put some partnership together. We have some opportunities to make between African countries, south, north, east, and west. African countries do not have some exchange, business exchange together. We have opportunities to seize between African countries that we are not using. We only work, for example, in Tunisia, we only work with European countries. That's a shame that we don't work with other African countries. The opportunities are here, but we're not seizing them. So as I said, we have a lot of young people that are leaving the country, that are leaving North Africa, that are probably even leaving other African countries because they don't feel that they have the right opportunities here. I think one of the things to do is, first of all, put this basis for people to have, to feel that their future is here, not in European countries or probably America or elsewhere. This is our future. This is the future of African countries, first of all. Secondly, we need to communicate. Most of the companies in Tunisia or in Africa, they do not communicate very well. So we need to, as a marketing focus in my major in HEC, I learned to communicate. So communicating has two aspects. First of all, the aspect where you build an image, and some of the speakers also talked about building image for branding and etc. But also you need to create or build your own image for your company, because I have actually two backgrounds. One is as a designer, designing, collections, as you mentioned so far, regarding Fadila and Baku Sport. Secondly, I have another aspect, which is I am producing for other brands, European brands. We are manufacturers. I employ 1,500 people that manufacture textiles, and I need to build both image for my company to bring more people to work in the company, and also sell more products in marketing and this is very important for me to build this this communication strategy around my product and around my companies. So I think one of the what is lacking here in Tunisia and probably in some other countries, African countries, is that communication part. Now we have also to think about sustainability. Sustainability and the green company is something very important. It's the future. And Abir, I know that you are in this, focusing on this part of businesses and manufacturing companies. Sustainability, CO2 consumption, this is the future. We need to reduce that pollution. We need to reduce that waste. Lean manufacturing is one of the solutions as well, because we are wasting a lot of rubber, a lot of probably thread in our textile companies. There are a lot of pollutants used in chemicals and other printing, or probably dyeing, chemicals. So we need to reduce that to protect our planet. There are solutions now for fabric, sustainable fabric. There are solutions for sustainable chemicals, not chemicals, but actually natural dyeing aspects. We need, as African companies or African countries, to think about all these aspects, because they are the future. And if we do not invest in this aspect, I think European or Occidental companies, American and elsewhere, will not order from our countries or will not produce in our countries. One of the major forces in Tunisia is the manpower, the workforce, human resources. It's our capital. It's our most important value in a company. I think we have some small natural resources, a few of them, but not as all African countries who probably have better or more natural resources. In Tunisia, we do not have this actually this chance or this opportunity to get those natural resources. We have our man force and our human resources. We need to communicate with this with our workers. Mentality is really something very difficult to understand in most African countries. Mentality is something that you have to understand, to communicate with, to sometimes read every aspect of it, because not being able to communicate with your workers, it's really a burden. You will not be able to improve, or you will not be able to build your own and best performance for the future. I think there are other aspects, such as I said, partnerships that we need to work on. As president of the textile of a textile consortium, which is made of 4 members that are competitors, that was really a challenge for us to create that consortium. One of the major probably aspects or ways to improve our performance is to create such clusters or such partnerships between companies. Even if they are competitors, they can do their best to build a better future. You have many examples of clusters who can work on aspects such as training or sales or building companies to make or produce the same production. I think this is a way to improve their own or improve their productivity or their efficiency, is making these partnerships between African countries all over the continent, or probably between companies in the same country. Well, I think there are a lot of ways to improve SME. SME is a very important key aspect in our economy. We cannot just think about big or huge companies, because these are generally multinationals or multinational companies. SME is part of our economy. SME is also startups. We need to encourage these business angels. We need to finance them. We need to help them get their funding to go through their objectives or through their own ideas. I think there are a lot of problems to solve as well. There's not only opportunities, but there are also obstacles and problems, and obstacles are also in our political stability. We need to overcome this problem today in most of our countries. Having a political stability is something that is very important very important to our future, and very important to bring investors in our countries. Bringing investors is something that we cannot just forget, or just say, okay, we can make our own businesses. Some businesses need some partnerships from developing countries or from multinationals. I think stability is very important, and a very good political and investment climate is very important for our countries and for our businesses to evolve. Well, I think this is what I have to say, Abir, today. But I didn't prepare for this intervention, for this speech. It's always a pleasure to have you in front of us, and to see you as a Tunisian woman leading this forum. But I would also add that in textiles companies, you are a textile engineer, and in textiles you can see that 99 or 95% of the workforce is do you see me? Yeah, I had a problem with my battery. I think it's almost dead. I think, as I said, 95% of our workforce is based on women. So bravo, really. You are doing a very good job, and thank you for all these African women that are making their way into multinationals and international environment and countries. Bravo, and really I wish you very good luck.
Mr. Semi, thank you so much. I'm so proud and happy to have you with us today. And let me say that you are exemplary for the entrepreneur in Tunisia, Africa, and the world, because you believe on sustainability, you believe on human resources, and you are doing really a great job. Personally, I learned a lot from you, so thank you so much. And
thank you, Abir. We learned a lot from you as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you.
So let's move to our next guest from Tunisia as well. He's Mr. Najib Koli. He continued his high studies in France at ETNow in ETNow in the Vosges, and graduated in 1979. He's graduated in methods in Mons in 1982, and graduated in communication in 1985 by a Canadian textile dominion system. So as experience, he has 13 years at CEST in Tunisia, in Sousse, spinning and weaving industry incorporates, 2 years group Zanier in Absorba Monastir for textile manufacturing, 20 years in Bagovet and from the group Bacospor, and he has made the creation of Serivet in 2005. It's a screen printing and transfer company. By the end of 2030, he made the creation of Leominor Tunisia, and he's the CEO of Leominor Tunisia. Actually, it's an European public market making swimsuits and fitness finished good products, textile products. So welcome, Mr. Najib Koli. So proud to have you with us today from Tunisia. Please, you have 5 minutes to give us a great speech. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Abir. I'm very honored to be
We are
again
not
in this
seeing
important
you.
event. Nice to meet you all. I think you have presented me, but I don't need to ask anything more. That can I say that I am a dinosaur of textile production from enter packaging. Okay.
We are not seeing
now
you,
I'm
Mr.
Luminor. No, it's very a small enterprise, and they are produced about 1,200,000 pieces a year. So small and medium enterprise in Tunisia, according to IFCC, 95% of business in Tunisia as MSME, with account for about 40% of GDP and 56% of employment. The outlook remains dim for this firm, which have been constrained by the difficult domestic situation, particularly political instability and insecurity, you know. So, actually, Tunisia's small and medium enterprise activity has forcing in SME related to organized food, textile and clothing business development service. And hospitality, the project delivered technical assistance to export ready or near export ready enterprise and supported the creation and growth of Tunisia's small business development center to provide long-term support. So I happen to give me any other thing about this, but actually the investment in SME, MSE, excuse me, are considered the engine of moving competition, achieving. So excuse me for my English is not my best things to do, but I am French. You're not.
It's okay.
Okay, you understand everything what I say. So I'm
yeah, for sure.
They may social and environment problems are bringing innovative environmental and social practice. SME have the competitivity advantage that possibility affect economy faced of sustainable development. Our company is contributing in the 2030 agenda for sustainable development and adopted by the UN about the 70s SDG that urgently have to take action by all countries, the development as well as the developing ones in our global partnership. In our enterprise, our company, Luminor, we are giving the importance of the SDG, even with the actual pandemic situation. And we are thinking about to achieve every one of them for the benefit of economy, environmental, and so on. I think that we should support SME and provide them opportunity to achieve then good and prove their service by providing them. Excuse me, that's the first time in my life I'm learning a paper, because you know, generally I am speaking without paper. So it's very, very interesting for me, this meeting. And I will thank you very, very much, Mrs. Abir, I'm very happy to be with this group, and I hope you many good things in your life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kohli, Mr. Najib. It's a real honor to have you with us today. Thank you for accepting the invitation and sharing these thoughts. Yeah, you are one of the pillars of textile in Tunisia, in Africa as well. And I hope that this meeting will make a lot of synergy with all the African entrepreneurs and great people like you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Zabir. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Mr. Najib.
Thank you.
I'm so glad. So let's move to our.
You're welcome.
Aishik.
Yes.
Let's move to our next guest. So we'll finish. We are in late. I know, but we have great people with us, great speeches, so we cannot interrupt them. So that's it. So Miss Rachel Mwakazi, excuse me, I don't know if it's the right name. I'm so proud to have another African woman with us today. She's a mother, wife, Christian believer. She enjoys working with rural communities, especially in sustainable job and wealth creation. She's passionate about the potential and future of SMEs, upscaling cottage industries, value addition in agricultural goods and manufacturing of FMCGs. She likes equipment rural and marginalized communities with skills and knowledge, helps their business endeavors grow and be more formalized. She's interested in people, environment, technology, and economics. As a professional, she do rural development consulting in Dialogue Norway, private business, Skin Norway, bachelor degree in Nyskaping from Norwegian University College of Agriculture and Rural Development. She has masters in community development and social innovation with specialization in migration from VID Specialized University, Stavanger, Norway. She's a director, Bole Gardens in Kenya, ecotourism and agriculture. And she's a co-founder of Mango Development Norway, chairperson Mango Development CBO in Kenya, co-founder Youth and Platform, the trip is arts, co-founder at SOMAS, a community e-learning platform, executive committee member, Clean Shores Global, director at AUSACO, and founding communities Africa Diaspora Alliance, IFDA in training information. So proud to have with us today. Please unmute yourself and welcome. You have 5 minutes to speak about SMEs.
Thank you so much. I'm truly honored to be here and for the invitation, and also to fellow speakers, panelists who have spoken before. They've actually covered everything that that I deal with, so I will just be short. As you have read, I am very passionate about rural communities, because in this era of sustainability, I feel or it is known that a majority, especially of the poor, are based in rural regions. And coming from Africa, I have the experience of seeing that women are not, their SMEs are not even formalized. A lot of them don't even have bank accounts. A lot of them are doing survival businesses, trying, and there is no real good equity that they can get if we have grants or resources for economic recovery, especially like this time of COVID, they're left behind because they don't have credit histories, they don't have a record, they're just basically surviving. And I came face to face with this earlier last year on the onset of COVID-19 in my rural community, where I was trying to bring much needed help. Most of the people had lost their jobs, and these are really informal jobs in the agric sector. So even the local kiosk was suffering, where people go to buy. And these people, for example, in these kiosks that sell food or provisions, they depend also on people who take from them and pay at the end of the month or at the end of the week when they have the money. But all this was missing. And a lot of people kept talking about funds for empowering small businesses. And I was wondering, aren't these small businesses, while people were bringing food and distributing, I mean, there was a lot of solidarity in people giving what they had to boost the people or to make sure that people survive these perilous times. But again, when they gave food, the kiosks were there wondering who is going to buy from them. They've lost customers, they've lost an income. So I was shocked to see some of them moving from being businesses now to the other side of begging for food. And that's why we try to introduce and talk to the people in the community to tell them, if you want to distribute food, why don't you consider buying it from the kiosk? We led this by making vouchers which were being cashed in kiosks. So we could hit two birds with one stone, both these small businesses and also the rural communities that were struggling. And this has led us to develop products like this e-community school, where we are trying to bring education, especially tailor-made to these rural communities, addressing really their needs, instead of taking these models which everybody is copying from somewhere. A model worked in India, it's brought to Africa. A model worked in Nepal, is brought to Africa, just copy-pasted. We need to develop things which are uniquely African, which really reflect on our realities. Another thing, we need to tap into the power of the diaspora. As a person who lives in Norway, but with projects in Africa, in Kenya, there is a lot of opportunity, especially irrespective of how bad this pandemic is, it has also opened up some things. People are more connected than ever. People are using the digital space. And nowadays, I can coach women in the rural when I'm seated in my living room in Norway and they are in a center. For example, I opened up where I stay when I'm in Kenya in the farm, and I get them there and we learn. And some of these women have now moved from one space to another. Before, they were just casual workers somewhere, surviving, looking for a job today, tomorrow they don't have. We have built with them jobs which they get money paid on the weekend, they on a monthly basis. They work, and I am embracing the German Ausbildung system, where they have an opportunity to work and to work at the same time and some money. And together we are moving. They've moved from step 1 to step 2. They didn't have even bank accounts. Now they're understanding, they're becoming more and more financial literate, but also they have so much innovation and traditional knowledge, which we are packaging together to see what products they can produce, what can they add, what do they have for value addition. And these networks, for example, with me in Europe or other people, we are trying to help them. How can they brand their products for the global market? So I guess I'm in that category of dreamers who somebody talked about. I'm really positive positive. I like to think out of the box. And I like also to really talk to the grassroots community. My slogan in my organization is, we are at the grassroots, we listen. I have seen the power in listening to people. And so I just urge us, especially from the African continent, nobody is going to fight corruption for us. It's the biggest hindrance and graft. We will fight it ourselves. And we need also the authorities and the public sector to harness the power of the diaspora. We are not a threat. The billions of money being remitted, it goes to our families. And if we can be able to come together as diaspora and see whether it is our villages we are helping with machinery, there is power in collective action. So today I will just leave it there because I'm passionate about rural communities, SMEs, and I can take a whole day. So I'll just stop there and thank you very much for having me on board today.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rasha. I'm so happy. I'm proud to see women empowerment here in Africa, and I'm sure that we will make the change all together. So thank you so much for all of you, for our African honorable guests from Kenya, Tunisia, Nigeria, South Africa, Ghana, Aparna.
Yes,
I know we are
Abir,
late,
thank you so much.
I think it was a great session. Thank you all of you. Thank you so much.
Right, thank you, Abir. Thank you so much. It was well moderated. Thank you so much.